Attention. Unpublished forbidden story. Link in the comments. Only click if you are prepared. My name is Daniel. I am 40 years old. I have been a widower for 6 years. And that was the summer that completely changed the way I saw the world and myself. The farm where I live belonged to my father, and time here seems to pass slowly, as if each afternoon carries the weight of those that came before. The walls hold memories of generations. The smell of coffee in the cloth filter, the sound of the wind passing through the old windows, the creaking of the floorboards under familiar footsteps. It is a place where silence has a voice, and the past never really goes away. On the other side of the fence, on the neighboring farm, a new resident had arrived. His name was Eduardo. He was 43 years old, and had the look of someone who had been through a lot and learned to deal with what was left. Recently divorced, he came early every day to tend the pasture, tidy up the house he had inherited from his father, and always seemed busy, as if work was the only way he could find to keep his mind off things. In the early days, we only exchanged nods from afar, neighborly stuff. But as the weeks went by, our schedules began to coincide. The sound of his truck's engine crossed the yard almost at the same time I opened the shed. It was as if the day only began when our routines touched, even if in silence. I remember the first time we really talked. I was fixing a fence, and he appeared on the other side with a roll of wire and a discreet smile. "Can I help?" he asked. "You can, if you want. There's plenty of work for two," I replied. And that was it. No ceremony, no special reason. Just the sound of birds, the smell of warm earth, and two men working side by side. Eduardo had a different kind of calm. The kind of calm that comes from someone who has lost and learned to rebuild themselves. There was something about him that attracted me, but not in the sense of novelty, rather, his presence. He knew how to be, and that, over time, began to disarm me. Our friendship grew without me noticing. We would have lunch together from time to time, sitting on the porch, talking little. The silence between us was not empty. It was comfortable, full of understanding. He always brought a bottle of freshly brewed coffee, and I offered him warm cheese bread. The gestures were simple, but they carried a meaning I couldn't explain. One afternoon, after a long day at work, he invited me to have coffee at his cottage, a small wooden building at the back of the farm, overlooking the pasture and mountains. Light rain drummed on the roof, and the air smelled of wet earth. Inside, the fire in the fireplace cast dancing shadows on the walls. We sat close together, each with a steaming mug in our hands. We spoke little. He told me, in a low voice, about his recent divorce, about the emptiness that remained, and how much the silence of the farm made him rethink his life. I listened in silence, trying to hide how much those words affected me. At one point, he stopped talking and just looked at me. "Sometimes it's good to have someone to talk to," he said. "Yes," I replied, feeling my throat tighten. "Sometimes that's all we need." Time seemed to stand still. The fire crackled, and the wind outside made the windows creak. When he reached out and touched my face, the gesture was so natural that I didn't even think about pulling away. Our eyes met, and without saying a word, he leaned in. The kiss was calm, confident, full of something that wasn't impulse but recognition. It lasted long enough for me to feel my heart slow down, and the whole world retreat into that moment. After that, we didn't talk about what happened. We didn't need to. The next day, he came to help in the barn, and we followed our routine as usual. But the silence between us was different now, not empty, but full. The days that followed were filled with work and complicity. We shared tasks, tools, glances. Sometimes our hands touched as we passed the bucket, and the gesture seemed to last a little longer than it should have. Other times, he would leave 2 cups on the table, already waiting for me, as if that place next to him was rightfully mine. Little by little, summer turned into a time outside of time. The afternoons smelled of coffee and warm wood. The nights were filled with wind and memories. I watched him digging the earth, fixing the fences, and thought about how much his presence had become necessary. We never spoke of love, but it was in everything. In the way we shared the silence. In the way he said my name, dragging out the last syllable, as if he wanted to stay a little longer. At the end of the season, the sky began to change color earlier. The days grew shorter. I knew he was planning to go to the city to take care of the divorce papers. The day before, he came to say goodbye. "It may take me a while to come back," he said, looking at the ground. "I know," I replied, not having the courage to ask him to stay. He put his hand on my shoulder. The touch was light, but enough to make me understand what he didn't say. At that moment, the whole world fit into the silence between us. The next morning, I heard the sound of the truck's engine driving away down the dirt road. I stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching the dust rise slowly until it disappeared. I didn't cry. There was no sadness. There was only the certainty that something in me had changed and that, somehow, he would take a piece of it with him. To this day, when the wind blows through the trees and creaks the old fence gate, I swear I hear his soft voice saying my name. And then, the silence of the farm makes sense again. It's been a month since Eduardo left. The road to the city is still the same, but the silence that remains seems greater than before. Even so, the distance hasn't erased what we've been through. Every day, without fail, we talk, sometimes by text, sometimes by phone. They are simple conversations, but full of what really matters. He always asks if I'm taking care of his farm, and I say yes, that I stop by every morning just to check that everything is in order. He laughs and says I'm stubborn, that I should rest more. But the truth is, I like going there. I like seeing the things he left behind, feeling the air of that place. It's as if every fence, every smell of wet earth holds a piece of him. In our conversations, he says he misses me terribly, and I miss him too. He says he can't wait to come back, and I say the same. Sometimes his voice breaks a little, and the silence that follows says more than any words could. I want to hug him, to feel the warmth of his body, his scent mixed with that of the earth and coffee. I want to rest my face on his neck, to feel time stand still like that afternoon at the cottage, to kiss him again slowly as if it were the first time, as if the whole world could fit inside that gesture. Until that day comes, I remain here, between work and longing, taking care of my farm and his, keeping everything alive, as if each dawn were a promise of reunion. The sun rises, the wind blows, and time goes on. But inside me there is a calm certainty. He will return. And when he returns, I want the first sound he hears to be my heart beating faster. Over time, I have learned that love is not always what it seems. Sometimes it reveals itself in what remains, even when everything seems distant. In silent care, in repeated gestures, in the place that continues to be visited just because someone loved it before. I have learned that there are encounters that do not need promises, because what is created between two real people does not depend on time or presence. It is a root that grows underground, invisible, but alive. And perhaps mature love is just that. Not the fire that consumes, but the flame that endures. The weight that doesn't hurt because it trusts. The silence that doesn't weigh because it understands. Today, when the wind blows through the windows and slowly cools the coffee, I understand that some people don't come into our lives to fill a void, but to teach us to feel what was dormant. And that's why I wait, not with impatience, but with faith. Because I know that when he comes back, it won't be a new beginning. It will just be time bringing us back to the same place where it all began. Between the earth, the smell of the morning, and the love that never ceased to exist. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel to continue feeling, living, and believing in the power of stories that speak of love, silence, and new beginnings. Don't forget, unpublished story, prohibited link in the comments.